vast expanse of the ocean were two great white sharks, both formidable in size and power. One of the sharks measured an imposing 12 feet in length, while the other was even more colossal at a daunting 14 feet. They were heading straight towards his friends. He watched in horror as his friends began to panic when they noticed the colossal predators heading their way. Their frantic movements sent ripples through the water as they swam desperately towards the surface. The atmosphere turned tense and chaotic as fear gripped the group, the reality of the situation sinking in. Julius, one of Timothy's dear friends, was in terror as one of the great white sharks lunged and latched onto his torso. Its serrated teeth pierced his diving suit, puncturing his flesh. The horrifying sight left Timothy paralyzed with shock and helplessness. The shark thrashed violently, with Julius caught in its powerful jaws. In that moment of unspeakable horror, the shark momentarily let go, giving a false glimmer of hope. But within an instant it struck again, a savage and merciless assault. The shark ruthlessly attacked Julius once more, biting his head off in a gruesome act of savagery. Timothy's terror reached a horrifying peak as he witnessed the nightmarish scene unfolding before his eyes. Julius's limp, headless carcass slowly sank into the sea's dark depths, leaving a trail of blood in its wake. As he helplessly watched Julius's lifeless form descend, Timothy's heart sank further when he realized that another friend, Larry, was suffering a similar fate. The second great white shark wasted no time in its relentless pursuit. It swiftly sank its teeth around Larry's neck and shoulders, immediately snuffing out the life from him with ruthless precision. Timothy's eyes were fixed on his friend's body as it writhed in pain and despair, every movement a testament to his enduring agony. It was a horrifying and heart-wrenching sight that Timothy was forced to witness, as Larry's body convulsed in the throes of agony before eventually becoming limp, succumbing to the fatal injury inflicted by the relentless predator. Panic surged through the remaining survivors as adrenaline and the initial instinct of survival woke them from their stupor. Andy, Randall, and Timothy, their hearts pounding in terror, frantically swam toward the surface, their minds consumed with the hope that the sharks would be content with their earlier prey. The urgency of their escape fueled their strokes, pushing them to their limits. Breaking through the surface, their gasps for air mixed with the dread still clung to them. The crew on the boat, alerted to the dire situation, acted swiftly. They threw buoys attached to ropes into the water, hoping to provide a lifeline to the desperate divers. In the moment's chaos, the three survivors grabbed onto the buoys, their grip desperate and white-knuckled. The buoy became their lifeline, a symbol of hope amid the water like a torpedo, targeting Andy with frightening precision. The air turned thick with tension as the monstrous predator lunged at Andy, its movements quick and savage. The great white shark's gaping maw clamped down on Andy's neck and torso, its razor-sharp teeth sinking deep into flesh and bone. Andy, overwhelmed by the force and ferocity of the attack, was dragged back into the unforgiving depths of the ocean once more. The scene was a horrifying display of nature's brutality, leaving Timothy paralyzed with shock and dread. Timothy's piercing scream shattered the air, echoing in the vast expanse of the sea. He felt paralyzed, his body unable to respond as fear gripped him tightly. At that moment, a hand suddenly yanked him forcefully out of the water. Breaking on the boat, Timothy was overwhelmed by a profound sense of helplessness. The frantic activity and cries for help seemed distant, drowned out by the weight of the situation. The crew urgently called for emergency rescue, though the grim reality was all too apparent. It was already too late. The horrifying truth set in as they grappled with the nun. Its golden hues painted a mesmerizing panorama over the charming coastal haven of Cape Crest, off the coast of Australia. With its quaint beach town allure, this coastal gem had an almost otherworldly charm that beckoned travelers from all corners in search of their enchanted escape. Mark Howard and Emily Hoffman, two young souls yearning for a romantic weekend escapade, were no exception. Against Beyond the Waves. It was a precious opportunity for them to break free from the monotonous routine, a chance to rekindle their connection amidst the soothing symphony of the ocean's embrace and the tender whispers of the coastal breeze. As the couple arrived in Cape Crest, they were greeted by the rhythmic crash of waves and the fresh scent of salty sea air. The beach was dotted with families painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, as the couple donned their wetsuits and grabbed their surfboards. They paddled out into the ocean, the waves crashing against their boards as they ventured further from the shore. Mark's excitement was palpable as he scanned the horizon for the perfect wave. He could feel the adrenaline building within him, ready to be unleashed in the rush of the ride. Their presence, the scent of nearby seals and the vibrations from the powerful waves had drawn the apex predator into the vicinity. As the couple paddled further out, Mark spotted a promising swell approaching. With an eager grin, he positioned himself ready to catch the wave. The powerful force of the ocean carried him, and for that moment, in a shocking and utterly terrifying turn of events. It was so powerful that it propelled Mark off his surfboard, sending him soaring several feet into the air. He became a helpless figure suspended against the twilight sky before gravity took hold once more, and he came crashing down with a resounding splash into the churning water below. Disoriented and struggling to find his bearings, Mark desperately tried to swim towards the surface. Unbeknownst to him, his frantic movements in the water had drawn the attention of a formidable 13-foot great white shark, which had mistaken him for a seal in distress. Breaking through the surface, Mark frantically searched for his surfboard still attached to him. However, he remained oblivious to the ominous fin gliding stealthily towards him. He realized the impending danger only when he turned, but it was too late. Suddenly, heart-stopping, the great white shark lunged at Mark. His instinct was to raise his hand in a feeble attempt at protection, but it offered scant defense against the onslaught. The shark's jaws clamped down on Mark's right hand, its serrated teeth sinking deep into his skin and muscles, ruthlessly grinding against his bones. A primal scream of agony erupted from Mark's throat as the shark thrashed violently, worsening his wounds and ripping flesh with each savage motion. Panic seized Mark as adrenaline coursed through his veins, compelling him to react with sheer desperation. He punched the menacing shark with his remaining hand in a frenzy while repeatedly kicking its belly. Each blow was a manifestation of his primal instinct to survive, a defiant struggle against the relentless force of nature. As he fought to keep himself above the water, the cruel reality of the situation became evident. The shark's sheer size and power gave it a significant advantage. It was horrifying as the massive creature exerted its strength, overpowering Mark. The once vibrant sweltering embrace of Florida's summer in 1985. The relentless sun beat down mercilessly, had been a steadfast companion through countless maritime lured by epitome of an apex predator, burst forth from the depths with primal ferocity. Propelled by sheer force and instinct, the creature seized the marlin, sending shockwaves across the ocean. Amidst this chaotic scene, Jake was violently yanked overboard, entangled in a whirlwind of bone-chilling terror. The boat pitched and rolled violently after the struggle, the previously calm sea resembling a tumultuous battleground. Jake struggled to regain his balance amidst the surging waves and disorienting chaos. Meanwhile, the oceanic behemoth lurked beneath, circling and preparing for another assault. In a heart-stopping moment, the great white lunged from the depths, its malevolent eyes fixated on Jake. The massive jaws snapped shut, sinking razor-sharp teeth into Jake's left leg. The excruciating pain tore through his body, and he screamed, a primal cry of agony that echoed across the vast, unforgiving ocean. The teeth pierced flesh and bone, a vice-like grip that threatened to drag Jake into the ocean's depths. Panic surged, adrenaline pumping as Jake fought for his life. He kicked and punched, summoning every ounce of strength in a desperate bid to free himself from the maw of the fierce predator. The water turned into a horrifying mix of blood and salt water, as the shark's attack inflicted deep wounds on Jake's leg. The metallic smell of blood filled the air, adding to the tension of the life-and-death struggle unfolding in the once serene ocean. Each moment felt like an eternity, marked by searing pain and an overwhelming sense of desperation. It was a brutal fight for survival against an unyielding predator. Then, in an almost unbelievable turn of events, the great white shark let go of its tight grip on Jake's leg. The jaws that had clamped down on him slowly released their hold, granting a fleeting moment of relief in this life-or-death confrontation. The battle, fueled by a surge of adrenaline, now teetered on the edge of uncertainty. It could have been Jake's frantic and desperate attempts to fight back, targeting sensitive spots on the predator that made the shark hesitate. Or perhaps amid the chaotic struggle for survival, the shark realized that Jake was not the intended prey. Jake's leg was mangled despite the reprieve, the damage severe and life-altering. The wound oozed blood, staining the sea with a sickly shade of red. Jake struggled to stay afloat, his strength waning as he grappled with the unimaginable pain. Thankfully, Donnie, his loyal companion, was aboard the boat. In a desperate bid to save his friend, Donnie acted swiftly, throwing a buoy attached to a rope into the water. He reeled Jake in, his muscles straining against the weight of his injured comrade. Once aboard, the extent of Jake's injuries became agonizingly apparent. Once a source of strength, the leg was now a horrific sight. Flesh torn, bone exposed, and blood flowing relentlessly. The boat's deck became a gruesome scene, slippery with the blood that ebbed from Jake's wound with desperation as he steered the boat towards the distant shore. Time was slipping away, and they were racing against the inevitable, physically and emotionally, a reminder of that harrowing day in the clutches of the ocean's apex predator.
Idyllic beaches and tranquil waters. The idea of exploring the filled Melissa's family with open arms. The turquoise waters glimmered in the sunlight, and the white sandy beaches stretched for miles, inviting them to explore. The constant murmur of the waves crashing against the shore provided a soothing soundtrack to their adventures, while the soft sand tickled their toes. But beneath the idyllic scenery lay a world of danger, and it was only a matter of time before they would find themselves entangled in its grasp. As the sun began to set, Melissa and her family sat down and recommended that they explore the Molokini crater, a dormant undersea volcanic crater. Intrigued, Melissa and her family eagerly inquired for more details about the location. The local described it as a magnificent wonder of nature, with an abundance of marine life and underwater caves waiting to be explored. As the group imagined themselves diving into the clear blue water of the crater, they felt a sense of excitement and apprehension. They had never attempted anything like this before, and the unknown dangers lurking beneath the surface added to the thrill. The idea of venturing into a crater formed by a volcano that had been active in the past made their hearts race. Despite their hesitation, they decided to take the plunge and embark on this new adventure. On the day of the dive, the family was bubbling with excitement as they strapped on their diving gear and jumped into the cool, clear water surrounding Molokini crater. The vibrant colors of the coral reef below were mesmerizing, and the family couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder and awe at the otherworldly beauty before them. Schools of brightly colored fish swam around them, while majestic sea. However, while swimming, Melissa noticed a group of large shadows lurking in the murky waters. Curious, she used her underwater flashlight to shine a light on the shadows. Melissa was petrified to see a pack of tiger sharks stalking the murky waters. In a panic, Melissa swam to the surface and alerted her whole family. The family were in a frenzy, thrashing relentlessly with their efforts to reach the safety of the waiting boat. The chaos caught the attention of the sharks. The pack of sharks swam towards the commotion. Realizing that there's prey in the water, the predators went on a feeding frenzy. The rest of the family were almost upon the boat, but Melissa was not so lucky. In a matter of seconds, she was surrounded and circled around by a pack of hungry tiger sharks. Melissa could see the fins of 5 sharks circling around her. She tried to swim away as fast as she could, but the sharks were faster. Suddenly, one of the predators lunged at her, biting Melissa's left leg. Melissa screamed in agony as she felt the shark's razor-sharp teeth tear her flesh. The water around them was crimson red with Melissa's blood mixing with the salt water. The smell of the blood in the water crazed the other sharks, who were overcome with their primal instincts and hunger. The other sharks started attacking Melissa, who was helpless against the might of the predatory beast of the sea. As the first shark latched onto Melissa's leg, tossing her around like a rag doll in the water, one shark latched onto Melissa's arm. Suddenly, in a bone-crunching bite, both sharks bit off Melissa's limbs. Melissa couldn't even scream, as another shark bit off her head. The sharks continued their harrowing attack. Some sharks began ripping the other limbs, while one bit on Melissa's torso, dragging her mangled, lifeless body to the depths of the ocean. Melissa's family could only watch in horror as this pack of tiger sharks ripped her apart. The Coast Guard responded to the distress call of the guide, but it was no use. After several days of search, no part of Melissa was found, Her family was left with. They came across a small beach town that caught her eye. It was a picturesque place with quaint little shops and cafes lining the streets and a long sandy beach stretching out in front of her. Magdalene knew she had to stop and explore. She parked the RV in a nearby campground and spent the next few days wandering around the town. She met some friendly locals who showed her their favorite spots, including a hidden cove that was only accessible at low tide. Magdalene spent hours sitting on the beach, watching the waves crash against the shore and feeling the sun on her face. As she walked through the town, Magdalene couldn't help but notice how relaxed everyone seemed. People strolled along the streets, drawn to the idea of settling down in this little town. She had been on the road for years now, and while she loved the freedom and adventure of traveling, she was starting to feel a little bit lonely. She missed having a community of people around her, and she longed for a place to call home. After some thought, Magdalene decided to take the plunge. She found a small cottage for sale on a quiet street just a few blocks from the beach, and she decided to buy. Magdalene decided to take her small boat out to sea and spend the night sleeping on the waves. It was a clear night, with a full moon casting a soft glow over the water. She lay down in the boat and listened to the sound of the waves lapping against the side. As she drifted off to sleep to the sound of the gentle lapping of the waves against the hull of the boat, Magdalene was startled awake by a sudden jolt. The boat was rocking violently, and she could hear something thrashing in the water nearby. She sat up and peered over the side of the boat, trying to make out what was happening. That's when she saw it. A massive great white shark, easily 15 feet long, was attacking her boat. It had bitten into the side of the boat and was shaking it back and forth, trying to get Magdalene inside. Magdalene tried to stay calm, but her mind was racing. She had heard stories of sharks attacking boats before, and she didn't know what to do. She grabbed a nearby oar and began hitting the shark with all her might, hoping to scare it away. But the shark seemed undeterred, continuing to bite and shake the boat. Magdalene frantically searched for something else to use as a weapon. She remembered that she had a can of bear spray on board, but she wasn't sure if it would be enough to scare off a 15-foot predator. She quickly grabbed it and aimed it at the shark's face and sprayed, hoping to repel it with a strong scent. To her relief, the spray seemed to do the trick. The shark suddenly released the boat and swam away, disappearing into the darkness. Magdalene sat there for a few minutes, catching her breath and waiting to make sure the shark wasn't coming back. Magdalene breathed a sigh of relief as the shark swam away, but her relief was short-lived. Magdalene thought she was safe, but she was wrong. The shark had disappeared into the darkness, but it had not given up. It circled the boat and came back for a second attack. The shark reappeared, its massive jaws closing in on her arm. Magdalene screamed in terror as the shark clamped down on her arm, dragging her into the water. Pain shot through her body as the shark shook her violently, trying to tear her arm off. Magdalene's mind raced with fear and panic as she desperately fought back, hitting the shark with everything she could find. But the shark was too strong, and Magdalene's efforts seemed to only anger it more. Just when she thought all hope was lost, Magdalene spotted a nearby boat. With all her strength, she managed to break free from the shark's grip and swim towards the boat, yelling for help. The occupants of the boat quickly sprang into action, pulling Magdalene out of the water and taking her to shore. Her arm was badly injured, and she was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. Magdalene spent the next few weeks in the hospital, recovering from her injuries. The attack had left her with deep wounds and extensive nerve damage in her arm, making it difficult to move or even hold things. She was devastated to learn that she might not ever fully regain the use of her arm. Despite the setback, Magdalene refused to give up on her dream of living in the beach town. She worked tirelessly to rehabilitate her arm, undergoing multiple surgeries and months of physical therapy. Slowly but surely, she began to regain some movement in her arm, but it would never be the same. Magdalene's experience with a shark attack had left her with a newfound appreciation for life. She realized that every moment was precious and should be treasured. She decided to use her experience to inspire others, sharing her story and encouraging people to never give up on their dreams, no matter what obstacles they might face. In the end, Magdalene found that her dream of settling down in a small beach town had come true. Despite the hardships and challenges she had faced, she had found a community of people who welcomed her with open arms and helped her. The world's highest peak had all been accomplished. However, now yearned for the heart-pounding excitement of undersea exploration. After much research, Randall chose Mossel Bay, a place renowned for its vast population of great white sharks, to try his hand at shark cage diving. The idea of being submerged in a steel cage, teetering precariously on the ocean surface while a colossal predator swam around, both fascinated and terrified him. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience that could go one of two ways: an unforgettable thrill or a terrifying disaster. The journey to Mossel Bay was long, but when Randall arrived, he was struck by its immense beauty. The cerulean waters of the ocean shimmered under the sun's rays. The coastline was a picturesque panorama of rocky cliffs and sandy beaches. The tranquil town was small, but it was clear that this place held great power, with a possibility of danger lurking just below the water's surface. Randall's excitement grew as he boarded the boat and set out towards the diving location. The cage was ready and waiting for him, and he couldn't wait to be lowered into the water. As the cage sank into the depths of the ocean, Randall's anticipation turned to fear. The water was murky, and he couldn't see far beyond the steel cage. The silence was deafening, and the only sound was the rhythmic breathing of the diving crew. Suddenly, a group of great white sharks began to circle the cage, their teeth glistening in the murky water as they attacked the steel pegs. Randall could feel his heart pounding in his chest as he watched them, wondering if the cage could withstand their attack. But as the sharks continued to circle, the cage remained sturdy, and Randall felt confident that nothing bad could happen. As the minutes ticked by, the tension grew palpable as the sharks kept circling the cage, their razor-sharp teeth bared in a menacing display. Randall and the crew felt a sense of relief when the sharks eventually stopped attacking the cage, only for their relief to quickly turn to confusion as they suddenly disappeared without a trace. In the murky waters, a thick layer of foam and bubbles made it difficult to see anything. But in the depths, Randall caught a glimpse of something that made his heart race with fear. A massive figure was moving towards the cage with deadly precision. It was coming fast, and there was nowhere to hide. As it approached, the figure became clearer, revealing itself to be a colossal great white shark. Its massive body dwarfed all other sharks they had seen before. Its scarred sides bore the evidence of countless battles, and its cold, dead eyes were fixed on the steel cage with an unerring focus. The crew and Randall watched in terror as the shark kept circling the cage, getting closer and closer with each pass. The atmosphere was thick with fear as they waited for what would happen next. The suspenseful silence was shattered when the shark disappeared suddenly into the depths of the ocean, leaving them all gasping for air. With the sudden appearance of the colossal great white shark, the crew of the diving expedition was thrown into a frenzy of fear and panic. They knew that they had to act quickly to save Randall's life. Without hesitation, they pulled on the rope that would lift the steel cage back to the surface. As they hauled it up, Randall could feel his heart pounding in his chest, and his body was shaking with fear. Just as he was about to breathe a sigh of relief, thinking he had made it out alive, the bottom of the cage was struck by a massive force. It felt like a powerful blow from a sledgehammer, and Randall was thrown off balance, his body jerking wildly in the water. He knew that something terrible was happening, and he could feel his fear growing with each passing moment. The sound of the impact was deafening, and Randall could feel his ears ringing. The water around him churned and frothed, and he knew that something was trying to break through the cage. His mind raced as he tried to imagine what kind of monster was capable of such a feat of strength. Randall's mind raced as he frantically scanned the murky waters, desperate to identify the that it dragged Randall's mangled remains down into the dark, abyssal depths of the ocean, far from the safety of the surface. It was a gruesome and unsettling sight, a grim reminder of the dangers that lurk beneath the waves. The attack was so sudden that the diving crew was not able to react accordingly. Randall's body was never found, and the story of the attack sent fear and terror to the diving community. It was a reminder that nature was unforgiving, and even the bravest and most experienced of thrill-seekers. The calm waters around the island seemed to call out to him, and without any particular reason, he decided to take the boat for a trip around the island. The situation turned dire when the vessel's engine suddenly faltered, refusing to restart. Left stranded in the frigid waters near the island, Francis attempted to call for assistance, but was informed that it could be a considerable amount of time before a tugboat would arrive to aid him. With no means of propulsion and an uncertain wait ahead, he found himself in a precarious predicament. As Francis sat there waiting for the tugboat to rescue him and his stranded vessel, he couldn't help but feel restless. Something was nagging at him, like a persistent itch that he couldn't scratch. Suddenly, he remembered the acrid scent of smoke that had filled his nostrils earlier, emanating from the engine room. His curiosity piqued, he made his way to the aft of the boat, gingerly leaning over the edge of the deck to peer into the mechanical abyss below. It was then in that vulnerable position that fate decided to strike its cruel hand. Before Francis could react, a monstrous figure emerged from the depths of the frigid waters surrounding the boat. It was a behemoth of the sea, a great white shark, with jaws wide open and rows of serrated teeth glistening in the sunlight. With ferocious speed, it lunged at Francis, sinking its teeth into his shoulder with a bone-crushing force. A blood-curdling scream escaped Francis's lips as searing pain shot through his body. He felt as if his flesh was being torn apart, the shark's teeth slicing through his skin like a hot knife through butter. Blood poured out from the wound, mingling with the salty waters of the San Francisco Bay, staining the once calm surface a deep crimson. Francis thrashed and writhed, desperately trying to free himself from the jaws of the predator. But the shark's grip was relentless, its teeth sinking deeper into his shoulder with each thrash and pull. The excruciating pain was overwhelming, and Francis could feel his strength ebbing away, replaced by a numbing sensation as blood loss took its toll. As the water closed in around him, Francis realized he was in a fight for his life. He tried to fend off the shark with his free hand, desperately striking its sleek body, but it seemed impervious to his feeble attempts. The shark's thrashing movements only served to drag Francis further away from the safety of the boat, deeper into the icy waters of the bay. Francis felt a sense of hopelessness creeping over him. His body grew weak, and his vision blurred. He knew he was running out of time. But then, a surge of determination coursed through him, fueled by a primal instinct to survive. Summoning every ounce of strength he had, Francis reached out with his free hand and groped for the shark's eye. With a primal roar of pain and determination, Francis mustered every bit of strength he had to hold on to the shark's eye, feeling its squirming body thrash and writhe in agony beneath him. His grip was unrelenting, his fingers digging into the soft flesh of the predator's eye as he clung to life with every fiber of his being. The shark, shocked by the sudden attack, momentarily let go of Francis's shoulder, giving him the chance he needed to pull himself away from its razor-sharp teeth. Francis felt a searing pain rip through his flesh as he tore himself free, his shoulder and arm mangled beyond recognition. But he refused to give up even as the water around him turned crimson with his own blood. He knew that his only chance of survival It was the backup he had as a living testament to resilience and survival. His body bore the scars of the harrowing ordeal, a reminder of the ferocity of nature's prey. It was over 200 feet tall, with jagged rocks jutting out from the sides. The water below was deep dark blue, and Brenton knew that it was filled with all kinds of dangerous creatures, from piranhas to anacondas. Despite the danger, Brenton knew he had to dive from this cliff. He spent the next few days studying the cliff, measuring the height, the wind, and the water currents. He knew he had to time his dive perfectly if he wanted to survive. On the day of the dive, Brenton woke up before sunrise. He ate a light breakfast and spent hours warming up his body, stretching and preparing for the jump. He knew that one mistake could mean death. As the sun began to rise, Brenton climbed to the top of the cliff. He could feel his heart racing as he stood at the edge, looking down at the water below. He took a deep breath and jumped. The wind rushed past Brenton as he plummeted towards the water. He felt weightless, free.